Hello, everyone. Thank you for attending today's webinar. Uh, the title of today's webinar is Discover Why Sage Intacct is the number one cloud solution for nonprofits. So what we're going to do today is kind of cover a little bit about Intacct, how it works for nonprofits. Quick introductions here before we get started. My name is Joe Gupser. I am the partner of the Sage Software Division here at Martin and Associates. And on the phone with me is Pat Anson as well. He is the Sage Intacct Practice Manager here at Martin and Associates. So if any questions come up or if we want to talk about anything further after this webinar, you can reach out to us at that information there, and we will be glad to talk with you further about anything. Quick agenda about what we're going to cover today. So this is more of the agenda for the PowerPoint, and then we're going to get into the last part of the webinar today of actually getting into the software and doing a demo. So we'll do a quick introduction, both us and Martin and Associates and Intacct. We'll cover all these topics here. And then the key part is we're going to get into the demo down here at the bottom. Quick background on Martin and Associates. We were founded in 1988, and we have a lot of experience on our staff here at Martin and Associates with multiple employees with over 30 years experience in the industry. And our average tenure is approaching 15 years per staff across all of our staff. We have a wide variety of backgrounds and experiences across our staff, from the AICPA to the IAMCP to the ITA. We're comprised of various backgrounds of accountants, people that have a business process background, technicians, programmers, and we basically specialize in accounting information systems, so ERP packages like Sage Intacct, and implementing and training and supporting these systems is what we do, year round. It's not just a part-time job that we do. We do this year round, and we have hundreds of implementations across, various industries over our career here. We have been a VAR, or a value-added reseller, for Sage software since 1988. So a little quick introduction here on the Sage Intacct product. Sage Intacct is referred to as a born in the cloud solution. It was founded in 1999, and it has been native cloud from the very first line of code that was written. So this isn't a program they took that was an on-premise program and tried to rewrite it to make it be cloud-based. This was a cloud-based, SaaS-based product from the get-go, from the time it was thought of until where it is today. It's a very reliable product. They have a 99.8% uptime commitment, automatic backups. We'll see a couple things on the next slide. I'm going to show you about some things with that. It is accessed through a web browser. So what that means is, as long as you have an internet connection and a web browser, you can hit your Sage Intacct system. Doesn't matter if it's from a PC, laptop, phone, tablet, whatever. You have the ability to hit your Sage Intacct at anywhere, anytime, as long as you have an internet connection. And because you're hitting it through a web browser, it's got a more fresh and modern user interface than what you would maybe used to seeing on an on-premise product from in the past. It leverages off of dimensional accounting, which we'll talk about, and that kind of feeds into the dashboards and reporting in the system. Approval processes are built throughout the system, and we'll talk about that here in a little bit more detail. A key part of Sage Intacct is they are constantly developing the product, constantly adding to it. They release 4 updates per year, 1 per quarter, and the updates are automatic, so you have no downtime when updates happen. They just automatically get applied. When they're going to happen, and you come in the next day and you're on the new version. It is referred to as a best of breed product. It has an open API, so that's what lends to the best of breed. So it's easy to integrate in with other solutions, and we'll talk about that in a little more detail. So some of the performance issues I talked about. So we talked about the 99.8 uptime commitment, but a couple other things I want to point out on this slide is the data security line there. So it's 24/7 continuous monitoring and threat detection. So it's constantly being monitored. Um, and the top right there, data ownership. So it is cloud-based, it is hosted. But you still own your data. It's even though it's hosted out there, you still own your data. And if you ever had a desire to leave Sage Intacct, if you're on it, you'll be able to get your data. It's not being held hostage or anything. Just wanted to point that out. This is a key point right here. It was selected as the first and up to this point, still the only preferred provider of uh, accounting information systems by the AICPA. So it earned that distinction, 15 or so years ago, and it was the first one to earn that distinction. And then as of today, it's still been the only one to earn that distinction. So G2, we're going to talk a little bit about how Sage ranks in the G2 rankings here. So G2 is an independent business software review site that ranks various ERP systems across different industries and metrics. It's independent. It's not tied to any particular company or any particular ERP system. And year after year, quarter after quarter, Sage Intacct ranks #1 in customer satisfaction. Since 2015, compared to other cloud accounting vendors, you'll see there it's had the highest scores on satisfaction, product direction, and net promoter score. They have just recently released their fall 2025 rankings. And in the fall 2025 rankings, Intact, you'll see there was a leader on 39 grids, various things. #1 is satisfaction on 8 of the rankings that they did. They've earned 61 badges in total. Things that are specific to the NFP world are the last two bullets down there. They were #1 in customer satisfaction for the 12th consecutive quarter by G2 in the mid-market grid report for nonprofit accounting. And so they were ranked really high across all of that. Here is, again, from the fall 2025 rankings from G2. These are customer satisfaction rankings, and you'll see there's various things that they rank on, like likely to recommend, product direction, ease of setup, ease of use. And this just shows you Intacct compared to a couple other leading products out in the NFP marketplace, and how Intacct kind of stacks up against them and some of the key satisfaction rankings that they do. Here, this is related to features. So it's a 93% score. Of 4% or 4 stars or higher is what Sage Intacct has kind of earned rankings. And you'll see there various things like journal entries and dimensions and audit trail and so on and so forth, how it compares to other products in the marketplace out there, and how it compares to the average as well. So as you see year after year, Sage Intacct is constantly ranking at the top of the G2 rankings for NFP software systems. I had mentioned earlier that Sage Intacct is an open API, a best of breed type product. So there is a Sage Intacct marketplace where you can integrate in with other products out there. And then this just gives you a breakdown by kind of category and some of the key ones underneath each of those categories. The website is marketplace.intacct.com. If you go out to there, the marketplace kind of looks like this. It breaks it down by industry solutions. It breaks it down by functional solutions. You can also just type in here to see if anything is on the marketplace that you're looking to see if Intacct integrates with right out of the marketplace. And then you can click on any of those from there and look a little more about it and see a little bit more about the integrations. We'll kind of close that back down. Why Sage Intacct for nonprofits? So, it's a leading finance platform like we talked about. So some of the key points we talked about, it's 100% cloud. It's got a multi-dimension chart of accounts that we're going to talk about here in a little bit. That lends into a lot of the flexible reporting. There's a lot of AI that they've been building out into their product, and we're going to touch base on some of that coming up here. Easy to set up, easy to configure. Some nonprofit automation stuff. It's got native fund accounting built right into it. You have the ability of doing grant tracking and or billing if needed. Spend management, allocations, revenue recognition. So all that is kind of available out there in Intacct, tailored to the NFP nonprofit marketplace. And Intacct's looked at as an accounting leader. It's trusted by some of the largest, nonprofit companies out there. We already mentioned there that it's a leader in the nonprofit accounting marketplace, according to G2. And we already talked about the AICPA ranking and things of that nature. So that's all key benefits of what makes Sage Intacct be an ideal product for NFP companies. So let's talk about dimensions here briefly. So dimensions, in a nutshell, are they replace your segments from a traditional chart of accounts. So instead of having to build out a chart of accounts with every possible sub-account combination, you use dimensions inside of Sage Intacct. And there are both predefined dimensions and user-defined dimensions available. And what you do is you tag transactions to those dimensions. This then leads into one of the key benefits of Sage Intacct is the reporting and the ability to quickly slice and dice your data based on these dimensional values. You have predefined dimensions that come with the product, some that get added on if you have added on these modules. And if there's other things that you want to track that aren't in the standard dimensions out of the box, there is the ability of putting on user-defined dimensions to track that additional information that you want to track and report off of. So show you how this kind of works. Let's talk about the legacy, the way a legacy chart of accounts works. So we have one account. It's an equipment account. It's 1,500. And as a company, we have 3 segments right now. We have a 3-digit location, a 3-digit department, and a 3-digit project. And here are the possible values for each of those. If you created every possible combination of this account for all these segment combinations, you would have to create 75 different accounts out in your chart of accounts just for that one 1,500 account. Sage Intacct uses a more modern chart of accounts. So your chart of accounts is just your main account or your natural account. With that, you then leverage off your dimensions that we talked about to get a more shorter, concise chart of accounts. And we're going to see all this in action here in a little bit. Workflow approvals are built right into the system and available if you want to use them. They don't have to be turned on, but these are like approval processes where you can route certain things to have to go through an approval before they actually post or get created in the system to be used. And out of the box, you can do that for journal entries, vendors, bills, AP payments, PO transactions, expense report stuff, and timesheets. And the approval process can be based on different values or manager approval basis and things of that nature down bottom. Just realize that they're in the system by default, can be used across the system if you want to leverage them. Sage is very much into adding AI into the product. So some of the AI that's available in Sage Intacct right now is AP automation that we're going to look at. There's GL outlier detection, which we're going to talk about here in our slide in more detail. You can do some stuff with time and expense. There's the Copilot search help we're going to talk about here a little bit more in detail. There's the Copilot close automation, which is an AI product that kind of helps you with the closing process to help streamline and cut down the amount of time for your close because it's doing some stuff continually throughout the month. And then as part of the close automation is your variance analysis that comes with that as part of keeping your close process streamlined. So general ledger outlier detection is one of them I talked about. So what this is used for is as you're making journal entries, and when you submit them to kind of be posted to your, or submit them into the approval process, the AI part of Sage Intacct analyzes these journal entries to look for any outliers that are outside of what you normally would post to your general ledger. And once it's submitted, if it sees an outlier, it'll route it and say, oh, an outlier is detected, and it'll return it back to the person who put it in. And you'll see here where it tells you what the outlier issue might be. It could be a coding issue where you might be hitting a different combination of dimensions than you normally would hit for a particular account, or it could be an amount or something like that where you're hitting it for a higher dollar amount than you normally would, or a debit versus a credit or whatever. If there is no outliers, then it just goes and gets approved and gets posted. So the intention of this is to continuously monitor your data to help you throughout the month, so you're not coming at month end trying to figure out why you have some odd balances in certain accounts or whatnot. So Sage is a AI-based company, like I said. They're adding a lot of AI in their products. And this little chart on the right is a pretty big thing here, I think. 8+ years of delivering AI solutions. They have over 35,000 AI models that are being trained daily, not only by your version of Intacct, but by everybody else out there in the system that's using it. There's over 24 million invoices extracted annually through their AP automation features that we're going to see here in a little bit. And there's over 1.2 billion AI predictions that are done annually through the Sage Intacct AI features. Leveraging off of AI is the whole AP automation process. So AP automation is the process of getting an invoice from your vendor in a PDF format, getting it into the system automatically by it reading the PDF for you and extracting the data. That's the AP bill automation part. Then there's also the payment automation part of it, if you had that part as well, and that's where it does some of the payment automation for you. And diving into each of those in a little more detail, on the AP automation for bills, choose to import bills into the Intacct like we talked about. They can either be uploaded, which I'll show you, or they can be received via email, which I will also show you. Sage will automatically extract and read the data and pre-populate a draft bill for you. It'll work to identify the key data from a bill, the vendor, the amount, the dates, the line items. It'll learn over time. So as it'll put it in draft mode, because if it can't find certain data, it'll be in draft mode for you to go in and fill the missing data, because it'll tell you that it's missing certain data. As you fill in that missing data over time, it will learn where data's at on the invoice, or if it's just things that you do regularly with bills, it'll learn that over time and start automating some of that for you going forward. On the payment automation side, so this is the vendor payment, and this is powered by a product called Mineral Tree. Payments are started in Intacct, and then Mineral Tree and your vendor kind of work together to determine what payment method the vendor wants, and then Mineral Tree will issue the payments out for you based on the preferred payment method of your vendors. Cash management is available inside of Intacct. So this is for reconciling of your banks. You can do the old school method still of doing a file import where you get a CSV from your bank of transactions that have cleared the bank, and you can import them into Sage Intacct and then have matching rules to start matching those together. The newer way of doing that is through what is called bank feeds. And this is a direct connection between your bank and Sage Intacct, where it's constantly every 4 hours pulling down data from your bank of transactions that cleared. Based on matching rules that you set up, it's automatically going to match them together and automatically clear things for you. You could have the matching rules actually do create rules for you if you earn something like interest or got charged a fee or something along those lines where you have not accounted for that in Intacct yet. You could have it basically, not only would it bring the transaction in from the bank, It'll create the transaction it needs to in Intacct based on the rules you set up and apply them together automatically at that point. You also have the ability of doing these same features and functionality for credit card feeds as well, in addition to your bank feeds. Some features of the Sage Intacct that kind of ties to the NFP industry is grant management capabilities. So you could have standard version of grants, which is where it's just a dimension that you can tag transactions to allow you to do reporting, P&Ls, things of that nature by grant. You can also get more advanced features like grant tracking and billing, where that can be used to actually create and print AR invoices if need be. If you want to track things like labor hours and timesheet approvals and things of that nature. Sage Intacct Planning is a product that can be used out there for budgeting and planning purposes. It's a collaborative approach to your budgets where instead of sharing spreadsheets across your company, you have Sage Intacct Planning that people can get into. As the creator of the budgets, whoever sets them up can say who is responsible for certain accounts inside the budget. And when those contributors log in, they only see their accounts and they're working on the budgets for their accounts in Intacct Planning. And then once this whole budget is done and you're good with it, it can all be pushed into Intacct at that point in time. You can do what if scenarios, rolling forecasts. There's nonprofit spend management that can be added and turned on. This gives you kind of more control over your spending compared to your budgets. So purchasing, AP, and general ledger, look at certain thresholds that you set up based on your budgets, whether it'll prevent it or not let it go through. It just kind of more controls your spending against the budget to keep you in line with your budgets. Sage Intacct Fundraising. This is a finance and fundraising kind of, you're bringing them together for an NFP company. This is powered by Donor Perfect, it's called. So Sage Intacct Fundraising. You have the ability of configuring fundraising and donor management system, integrated donation and volunteer forms. You got donor portals, digital wallets, crowdfunding, automated alerts and tasks. So that handles all of it on the fundraising side, and it integrates right in with the Sage Intacct back office accounting side for your APAR, cash management, GL, allocations, budgets, fixed assets, all this good stuff on Intacct that we've been talking about. So they kind of integrate those two together in one for both the fundraising side and the back office accounting side. You have the ability to do fixed assets as well and track them in the system. And when you add the fixed assets module, it will it creates another dimension called the asset ID that you can then tag transactions to. When the depreciation gets calculated in the fixed assets product, it'll automatically post a journal entry to general ledger for you, tagging the appropriate assets. Also in PO and AP, you can create invoices on the fly, or assets on the fly, and have it push the information into Sage Fixed Assets Management to create the asset out there for you. All with inside the system, all to be able to be configured the way you need it to be. So that was my quick PowerPoint of kind of diving into some of the details there. Now what we're going to do is I'm going to launch Sage Intacct. So this is what Sage Intacct looks like. When you first come into Sage Intacct, you can control what your initial screen is going to be when you come into it. I have mine set to go to a Dimensional Insights dashboard by default. That's why this screen comes up for me. Per user, you can control how that's going to look and what you want it to be when you first kind of come in. Sage Intacct leverages off of a concept called top level. So you have entities or companies inside of Intacct that house all your different, federal tax ID numbers. So each company is in their own kind of entity out there. Sitting above each of those entities, though, is what's called the top level. So this isn't an actual entity that you have, but by putting data in the top level, this is where you can leverage off of a shared chart of accounts, a shared vendor list, shared dimensions, shared, all those things shared out there through the top level. And then all the entities underneath now see that data. So you're not maintaining a chart of accounts across, 2, 3, 4, 10, 20 different companies. It's all maintained at the top level. Every entity below it can see it. You got a new vendor you want to put it at the top level, and all those entities see it. Okay, so it helps making your data kind of stay clean and concise because you're not maintaining it across multiple companies. And also, if you are growing and you add a new entity, as soon as you set that entity up underneath of the top level, it'll see all the data from the top level, and you'll be able to start transacting right away, leveraging off of that. You can color code these. I'm sitting at the top level. If I want to go into an individual company like 100 USA 1, when I click on that, it'll launch that one. And I'm now sitting, when that comes up, I'm going to be sitting in USA 1. And you see I have different color code combinations here, but I'm sitting in an individual entity at this point in time. Okay, not at the top level. From the top level, I can transact into any entity that I want to. You can control by user who can get into what entities and who can get into the top level and all of that good stuff. So underneath of users, I'm going to pick a user here, Lisa CSR, and you'll see she is tied to just the 100 entity, and she does not have access to the top level. So what this means is when Lisa would log in, she would automatically be sitting looking like this, where she's sitting in USA 1 by default. And when she would click on the drop down here, that's all she would see. She wouldn't see top level 200 and 300 because she's limited to entity 100. Okay, but I'm not logged in as her, so I'm seeing all of them still. If you want to open up multiple tabs inside of Intacct because you want to be in multiple tasks at the same time, that's easy enough by right-clicking on the tabs here and saying duplicate, and that just launches another tab that you can then go into and open up your general ledger accounts, for instance. And you can do that as many times as you want. I could duplicate again, and maybe I want to go into accounts payable and go into bills. Okay, so you just keep right-clicking and duplicating as many times as you want. You could have as many tabs open in the system that you would like. The drop-down, this is all your modules here. You can control by user the order you want these in. If I want dashboards to be below reports, I can click on it and hold the mouse down and drag it below reports and drop it. So I'm controlling the way my interface will look. You will only see items on the menu that your user has permissions to see based on their roles. Okay, so if they don't have access to a module, that user will not see that module, or if they don't have access to a task, they will not see that task. You can also favorite various menu options. If I go into maintain vendors a lot, I could go to vendors, hover over it. You see how there's a star here, it's not highlighted. I could click on that star, it now goes to yellow. Now out here underneath of my favorites, which is this star right here, I now would see vendors as one of my favorites. So it's a quick way for users to mark their favorites and to be able to get to them. And it could be all of them that you favorited or broken down by module for your favorites. Intacct's got a very good help system built into it. So if I'm on a screen and I want to know about a certain field, so let's say I'm in maintain vendors here, and I'm looking at a field here going, what does field X mean? Any screen that you're inside of Intacct, you go to help, and you go to help on this page, and it will take you to help on that page, and it'll show you the details of everything related to that topic that you're on by just going right to the help. It'll show you related topics based on what you're in, other topics that are related to it that you could branch out from. There are hyperlinks to look at additional information. So very good help system built into it. There's also the Sage AI Copilot search help, which is a more interactive type of a help. So if you go help and support and go to search help, and it doesn't matter what screen you're on here, it's more of a questions and answer thing. So I could say something like, how do I set up a vendor? And hit enter. And it's going to go through and through the AI capabilities of Intacct. It's out there putting all this together for me. And it's going to come back with a step-by-step. Here is how you create a vendor in Intacct. And it walks you through step-by-step of how to do that. And it'll also suggest other topics for you based on what you searched. And you can keep asking any other questions. So anytime you're unsure about how to do something in Intacct, go to the Sage Copilot help and just do how do I and search on it. And it does a really good job of showing you that, of how to do that. Dimensions, like I said, kind of replace your sub accounts. The way you get to them is underneath of reports, setup, dimensions. You have various dimensions that come in the system. So departments is a standard one. So you'll see for this particular company, it has departments set up of like 100 for sales, 200 for operations, on down all the way through 575 for testing. You can create how big you want the code to be for the ID, and you give it a name. There's not a whole lot of detail behind it. You're just going to tag transactions to this. So you have a name, an ID, and whether it's active or not are the key fields. You can do a parent-child type of a relationship. If I go into another dimension called class, you will notice here that 400 is a parent of 405 through 425. So what that means is anytime I tag any transaction with the class of 405 through 425, I would be able to report off of that individual class's data. But I could also run 400 and it would roll all those up together for me based on the parent-child relationship that I set up when I set up these 405 and on down. So I did that by saying the parent ID right here was 400 industrial. You have the ability of changing the name of any of these dimensions to be more of what you would call the dimensions. Let's say you don't call it a class and you call it a service, for instance, or you don't call it a grant, you call it a fund. That's all controlled underneath of company, setup, terminology. And these are all the different elements in the system that you can give different names to. So if I don't call class a class, I can edit this and say it's called a service. And then everywhere in the system, it'll now call it a service or services based on that. And it's not just the dimensions. You have other things like the employees, customers, vendors, things of that nature that you can rename if you desire to. You have the ability to do funds and grants. So if I go funds and or grants, if I go to setup, there's a grants option here. This is how you can set grants up. And we talked about how there's different flavors of grants that you can set up or that you can have available in the system. There is the more basic, which is just the grant is a dimension that you tag transactions to. And if you get into grant tracking and billing, you have the ability of on the summary tab here, have it in bucketed numbers that you're going to look at across this grant or fund. And you can actually put in projected billings and projected costs and track things against those projections and all that good stuff. So that's available out there in the system. The key of your dashboard, the key of your dimensions are your dashboards and your reports. So you saw when I came in, I was at a dashboard by default. What I can do with these dashboards is I have with these dimensions, I can go to any of my dashboards here, and I'm going to go back into that dimensional insights one. And I have the ability of right from this dashboard, I can start slicing and dicing my data based on any of these dimensions. So you'll see I have department, location, and class up here that I can start selecting. So if I wanted to look at all this data recalculated by just the sales department and the residential class, I just pick those two and say apply, and you're going to see it's going to go out, slice and dice that data, and it's going to recalculate and figure out each of these widgets on my dashboard based on those criteria. So quickly at a drop of a hat, I can start filtering my data down. So that's residential. Maybe I want to look at commercial and see what I have out there. And it's going to recalculate that based on commercial. Okay. So slicing and dicing of your data is a key part of the dimensions. Your dashboards, there are a number of dashboards that come with the system in what's called your quick start library that you can use as starting points. You can modify those dashboards any way you want them to look. You can also create your own dashboards as well if you have the desire and the need to do that. You can also have role-based dashboards. If I go back to dashboards here, I can go role-based, and I might have something like a CFO level dashboard where I set one up for my CFO that gives them the key metrics is that they want to look at or need to look at. From here, I have the ability of drilling down in any of this data by clicking on any of the widgets out here and just working my way down through the underlying data. So if I look at something like revenue, I can drill down on that and see it's broken down by surveillance, entry, and accessories. I can drill down on that even further and see the individual transactions out here, drill down that even further, and I can just keep drilling my way down to look at my data out there. Just by slicing and dicing all that data. Entities are your companies, like I mentioned. So those are set up underneath of company entities. You have your individual companies set up out here. A key part of Sage Intacct is the multi-entity or intercompany is built right into it. This is where you set your relationships up between your companies or your entities, and it'll start doing your do tos and do froms for you automatically now based on what you have set up in your inter-entity account mappings. And we're going to see that in action here in just a minute. General ledger, this is where you set up your general ledger accounts. When you come into the general ledger account screen, this is in a lot of screens inside of Intacct, whether it's your accounts, your vendors. This is what's called a list view. And you have the ability of sorting any of these columns on a list view by just clicking on it, and it'll go between ascending and descending order. I can search on any of these columns by typing something in here and putting in like rent. Okay. I can create new views if I want by going new here and creating new list views and control what data I want to see in my columns if I want to remove or add data to my columns. And I can make these list views be public or private when I create new ones out there as well. In addition to having and you'll notice we just have for our chart of accounts, it's just our account number, just our main account. We don't see the combination that you would see in a legacy system where you would have like, an expense account and then all the sub accounts come after that. So you would see that same account repeated multiple times in your chart. You just see it one per, and we're going to leverage off those dimensions in. You have the ability of doing statistical accounts if you have the desire or the need to do that. This could be things like employee headcount. If you're in the nursing, like, in the nursing care industry, you might have things like patient days or number of beds, or if you're in the transportation industry, you might have number of buses, things of that nature. And you can make and track, you can make statistical accounts, and you can track the quantities on those to then leverage off of those in your financial reports later if you had a desire to do that. Budgets are available in the system. They reside right here underneath the budgets, budget repository. You can create an unlimited number of budgets out there. Here's one for budget current year. I'm going to go into budget details here. By account, by uh, dimensional value, you can set up your budgeted numbers. So for revenue surveillance for the sales department, the 120 location for the 200 class, here is my dimensional here is my budgeted numbers for the current year for each month. Okay. I don't have to key directly into this screen. I can if I want to. I also have the ability of importing in my budgeted numbers as well right here from a spreadsheet template. I had mentioned inside of the PowerPoint earlier, there was the ability to add the Sage Intacct planning as well. And that was a planning and budgeting collaborative tool. When you use that tool and you say, okay, that budget looks good, I want to push it into Intacct, it pushes it into this budget repository. Okay, it just gives you a front end to work on, is what it does. Let's talk about inner entity. I'm going to go out to General Ledger, and I have a journal entry sitting out here that I have in draft mode I want to show you. So I want to go to Journal Entries. I have a sample little payroll one out here. So let me go down to my payroll journal and go to Transactions. And I have one here. You'll notice it's sitting in draft mode right here for ADP payroll for 11/24/25. I'm going to go into that. So I've already made the entry. So it hit some salary expense accounts here. I tagged, so I just picked an account. It's then tagged to your different dimensions right here. So each dimension, it just gets tagged accordingly. Okay, I could do my grant if I wanted to as well. By saying that the source entity is entity 100, notice here I picked a different entity and said this was entity 200, but it's being paid by entity 100. We're going to see how that's going to generate an inner entity posting here in a second. Any transaction or master file record in the system, you have the ability of dragging and dropping attachments. So I had dragged and dropped this attachment on here, and anywhere I look at this transaction in the system, whether it's before I post or after I post, this could be supporting documentation behind my journal entry maybe, okay? So let me go ahead and post this. And then let me go back into that because I want to show you what that did. In addition to making the journal entry that we saw. So here's the journal entry that we saw when we looked at it. But because I said source entity was 100 and I was doing some expense accounts to entity 200, notice it did my inner entity entries here for me automatically. So I get my due to 100, my due from 200 based on that dollar amount of $27.50 automatically all from that one journal entry. It did my due tos and due froms for me. I don't have to manually key a journal entry in. I can import a journal entry in. So for instance, if I have here's a rent expense journal entry, let's say. So I have some prepaid rent that I have out there, and I want to recognize some of that expense. So I want to make this be 11/25/25 as my date. And you'll see what I have going on here. Give me a second here. Post that in there. Okay, I have it coming out of the prepaid rent expense of $27.50, and I have it hitting individual rent expense accounts for different dimensional values right from this spreadsheet here. I'm going to save this. Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to go into General Ledger Journal Entries. I'm going to go into GJ because this is the journal that I make these type of entries in. Oh, let me go back into here. Hold on, went one step too far. I can do it right from here. I want to say import. and it asks me to choose a file. So I'm going to browse down into a directory. I'm going to go into that same spreadsheet that we just modified, rent expense journal entry here, and I'm going to import that. And it's going to read it. It's going to hopefully tell me everything was successful, and I'll say done. If I go to GJ and look at transactions now, I'm going to see a journal entry out here. Expense of prepaid rent. It's got today's date on it. And when I drill down on that underlying transaction, I will see the journal entry that was just inside of that spreadsheet that I looked at. You have the ability of doing recurring journal entries if you have that need. So here's one for a recurring entry of recognizing prepaid insurance and moving it over to insurance expense. So you tell it the journal entry to make here of moving it from prepaid and moving it to insurance expense. The schedule is how it knows how to do this, because you give it a start date and you tell how many times it's going to run, when it's going to run, and then the system does everything from there for you automatically. And the schedule will run just after midnight in the time zone that you're in. It'll automatically run anything that you have scheduled for it to run. So this entry will happen for you automatically based on the schedule that you set up here. So you can set up any number of recurring journal entries. You have the ability of, it's got a really robust financial report writer inside of Intacct natively by default. So I'm going to go out here and I'm going to bring up a report called Profit and Loss Actual versus Budget. So let me go down here and sort this by name so I can easily find this. Okay, Profit and Loss Actual versus Budget. I'm going to go into it. On my rows, you define the rows in your report, and the rows leverage off of what are called account groups of how it knows what accounts go in on each row. And it's basically done by these account groups, and your accounts get assigned to account groups when you create them. So the benefit of leveraging off of account groups and not individual accounts or ranges of accounts is when you add new accounts in the system, you don't have to worry about whether or not Intacct's going to pick them up on your financial reports, because you are doing your reports off of account groups and you're assigning accounts to account groups. So you will automatically get all your accounts out there. On the columns, there's various columns you can set up. So column 1, in this case, I'm telling it it's my account name. And then I have a bunch of other columns here. So this is an actual versus budget. So I'm showing my actual numbers for the current month. I want to see my budgeted numbers off the master budget for the current month. I want to compare them together. There is a column called actual minus budget for the budget difference. And it will basically give me my variance out there for the current month of actuals versus budgets. And I can do a percentage on that as well. So here's my budget variance percentage, and it'll turn that variance into a percentage. Well, in this same report, I also want to compare my actuals for the current month that I'm in to the actuals for the current month from last year to see what I am this year versus last year for this month. And then I have another calculation out here of doing a period difference where it's looking at a variance between this month this year and this month last year to give me a variance. Okay. You can do various formats out here of color coding things, how you want certain things to look. But when I go to run this, I can dump this out to HTML. I can dump this out to Excel. I can dump this out to PDF. But here is what my report's going to look like. So you see all the columns I said: actual budget, budget difference, budget variance, actual last year, and then my variance between last year and this year. I can drill down on anything that's in blue. If I want to look at what is my surveillance actual numbers this year, I can drill down on it just like I saw on the dashboards, see the individual transactions here. I can drill down even further if I desire to go down to the individual detail of the entire transaction. Okay, all right from my budgets. I also have the ability of dumping this right out to Excel. And unlike a lot of exports out to Excel where your columns don't necessarily match up, this will line up perfectly because it's intended to dump out to Excel and you can do anything in Excel now with this data that you would like to. You can also have what are called dynamic budgets. Okay. So if I go out here and I want to go and look at one more here at a report called profit and loss by department. So let me go back down, sort this, and I want to go out here and find my profit and loss by department. So you'll see this is a dimensional type report. So with my columns here, my columns can be not dynamic based on the values of my dimensions. So I just create a column called actual, and I say that it's expanded by a dimension, in this case, department. And I want all levels with the roll up. So that's saying for every departmentalized value I find, create a column and then give me a roll up at the end. So let me run this. And there's my report. So you'll see I have one column on my report of numbers, but you'll see I got one for admin, IT, marketing, operations, sales, and then a roll up at the end because I had a dynamic column turned on to create one per each department that it came across. A couple things on AP here real quick. I want to go into accounts payable and I want to go into bills, and I have a bill sitting out here. I have it in draft mode, already entered in. I can go out and look at it. So you'll see if I edit this bill, I have an attachment, just like I did on my journal entry, that I attached to it, that I can drill down and look at the actual bill that I attached to this entry. Here is my postings. Once everything looks good and I want to post this, I just say post. And at that point, it's going to post it out to the system. And I would then see that it's posted. And from there, it'll show up on my reports, show up on my financial reports. I'll be able to pay it, whether it's through a check, an ACH, however I go about paying that. You have the ability of doing AP automation in the system, and there are a couple of ways that you can do AP automation. One is a drag and drop type of AP automation. So I'm going to click on this upload button here, and it's going to ask me what file do I want to upload. I have a bill out here, RWS invoice. So you'll see it's for RWS commercial. It's invoice 1895. It's got a date of 11/19/25. It's for rent and it's for $1,500. So if I don't want to key that in, I want to just drag and drop that to say import that in for me through AP automation. It's got that queued up, ready to go. I could drag and drop any other PDF invoice that I've received from my vendors, and I say create bills. What the system is doing at that point is on the source, it's got a source of upload, and notice how it's analyzing right here. So it's reading that bill right now, and we'll let that sit there for 1 minute. The other way you can do AP automation is through through an email. So give me 1 second to bring up an email here and show it to you. I had shut my email down. All right, so let me go into this email that I have ready to go. All right, here, drag this over. Get this email ready to go. I want to take that. Okay, so what I have here, as part of your AP automation, you get an email address that's kind of configured with Intacct. So for our demo environment, it's martinandassoc.demo@sagemail.com. Here is another PDF similar to what we just looked like with the RWS one, but this is for Office Depot, June 4th, 2018. So it's an older one, but it matches up to the data we're looking at here. It's for office supplies for $300. Okay. So I'm going to email that to the AP automation email address. So your vendors could email it. You could email it yourself out there. And then we'll come back and look at this here in 1 minute after it gets a chance to do its work. Let's see if this one finished yet. Yeah, so here's the first one for RWS commercial. That is set analyzing before, but now it's saying it's in draft mode and you have some exceptions and you need to resolve. So if I go in there and look, you'll see it's telling me that I need a class for this GL account. So I'm going to edit this. You'll see it's from RWS, so it read that from that invoice. It got that the bill number was $18.95. It got that it was rent expense, $1,500, but I need a class, it's telling me. So I'm going to say this is for the residential class. It attached the bill for me automatically as part of the AP automation of the drag, the drag and drop upload. And I'm going to go ahead and say post. And then now I have that bill in my system without me keying anything into it other than fixing the class. Here's the other one. It already came in. So here's the one I just emailed in. It was invoice D198795, Office Depot, 6/4 of 2018. This came in fine. You'll see it came in through the email address of the one that we just looked at, the Martin and Assoc demo at sagemail.com, and it came from my joe.gupser at martinandassoc.com. And I'll drill down on that one. And same kind of concept like we saw in the upload one. It makes the entry for me. It puts the bill out there. It attaches the PDF to it. And at any point in time, I can look at that. And now I have a bill out there that I can now, pay. So two different ways of doing AP automation. Drag and drop upload or an email address, whichever one you prefer if you want to go with AP automation. Just like on GL, you have the ability of doing recurring bills. So if you have bills that are recurring in nature, like you get a rent expense bill each month, and it's the same amount each month, you could put that on a schedule and make that be a recurring bill so you don't have to set that up every time and enter that in every time. You could put that in out here. So here's one for Boston Properties that I could look at. You can drag and drop and put any kind of documentation behind that recurring bill here. So I have a recurring commercial lease agreement out there for this that I put on side of there. And then when it creates invoices off of that, that'll go along with it. And then just like on GL recurring, we have the ability of doing a schedule, and then the system will automatically do the recurrings for you based on your recurring schedule out there. The last thing I want to talk about is cash management. We're getting to the end here. On cash management, when you are in here, and I go into like my checking account, for instance, and I'm going to pick a particular checking account. So you'll notice that this has the link called transactions here. That is because that bank is configured through the bank feeds to automatically integrate in with, in this case, it's a sample Sage bank out there, but it's pulling in transactions from there. So when I come out here, I see transactions that came in from the bank. So this is my electronic bank statement in a nutshell. I can create banking rules to automatically match these together, which I'm going to show you the very last thing here in a minute. I can toggle between match transactions. These are ones that came in where it found a match. Or I can say unmatched transactions. These are ones that have come in where I haven't found a match yet, or the system didn't find a match automatically. And there's also what's called draft match, which we'll talk about here in a minute, where it kind of created the transaction and matched them together for me automatically, but it didn't finish the match and put them in a draft mode just for me to look at the proof to make sure that's what I wanted. For the matching rules, let me go out here underneath of cash management, and I'm going to go to setup, and I'm going to go into reconciliation rules, and I'm going to go to matching and creation rules. So I have two types of rule sets I can do out here. I can do a match rule, which means I'm telling it to look for a transaction that's already in Intacct, or I can do a create rule, which I'm telling it this transaction won't be in Intacct. I need you to create it. So let's look at the match rule first. I'm going to pick one here for 001. So this is where we're telling it down here at bottom, matching conditions. So the bank field of posting date should equal my Intacct field of posting date. The amount from the bank should equal the amount from Intacct. The document number, which in this case is my check number, should match my document number inside of Intacct. So I can start creating these matching rules to where it'll start matching when the transaction comes in from the bank. It looks for the matching record out there based on my rule set and starts doing these matches for me automatically. If it is a create rule, like a bank feed or a interest or something like that, that is like this bank fee right here. And I'm going to click on that. This is where I tell it what to look for, just like I did on the other one. The source data from the transaction from the bank is matching to the posting date greater than this. The bank transaction, the transaction type equals a debit. And in the bank transaction description field, it contains the words bank fee. Okay, if it finds that criteria, because I know what it looks like on my bank statement when they come in, I can then tell it to create for me a transaction template. And this is where I tell it to hit the 6600 bank charge account, and it will create the transaction and match it for me all at the same time. Okay, so I know we're right at the end here. That was the last part I kind of wanted to show you. I do want to show you one more thing. If I go back into my transactions and I'm on my on the ones that are unmatched at this point, right from here, I have the ability of coming in here and matching them myself. Or if it's a transaction that I say, okay, this 1010 right here, I haven't accounted for that yet. Let's say that's some kind of a fee or whatever. I have the ability of right from here, making it be interest or any other kind of journal entry or creating the transaction on the fly right here as well. And that is the end of the demo. We're right at 2 o'clock here. I don't know, Betsy, do we have any questions or anything, or?
There are not any at the moment. If anyone has any, if you want to type them into the chat or the Q&A.
Yep. This is being recorded. I should have mentioned that up front. So this is being recorded. A copy of the recording will be sent to you at the end. So if there are no questions, if you think of anything after the fact, please reach out. There is my email address, Pat Anson's email address as well, or you can email just into the sage.intacct@martinandassociates.com as well. I would like to thank everybody for coming. Have a great rest of your day. Have a great Thanksgiving, and hopefully we'll talk to you here soon. Thank you. Bye.